outlet of this passage here, as you can see, which has a switch that turns on and off here. The fan motor in the heat exchanger. And at the top of this module, we have an oil temperature sensor, which is at the reservoir outlet that sends an indication to the pilot on the VMD of the oil temperature. Where does this oil go after it leaves? It goes to the engine. It follows this path, goes over to the engine side, and we'll see on the other side where this oil hose goes. This is the engine oil supply hose right here. All right, let's go to the other side of the engine. That line we saw on the other side, it comes over here, right? This line here, look. This line here. And this is where it enters the engine's oil pump. The engine oil pump is actually a set of 4 pumps, 1 for pressure. So here's the pressure one and 3 for return. It's a gear rotor type, right? We even saw earlier how it works. And it's driven here by the gearbox for N2. This oil goes inside the pump under pressure, comes to the gearbox. From the gearbox, it goes through an internal gallery, and then it reaches the oil filter. This specific oil filter on the outer part of the external casing functions as an integrated heat exchanger. It effectively exchanges heat with the fuel system. The fuel line circulates directly through here to heat the fuel while simultaneously cooling the engine oil. Once it has been filtered, this refined oil finally flows out and exits here through this pipe here at the bottom of the engine. See? Through this pipe. And also this oil here. This pipe comes out, and if you look here, it goes up and enters this block here. This is the oil system module. This oil pressure follows several paths. One path, it comes through here to lubricate the G1 and G2 bearings. And another oil pressure line that comes out of this module is used to supply oil pressure to the G3 bearing. This G3 bearing has a pressure line for it. It has a return line for it, which returns here to the module, and it has a direction line for it. The oil that goes to the rear part uses an internal pipe. Good evening. This connection tube. Here there are 3 pipes. One is the return line for the damping pressure of the intermediate gear here in Module 5. It comes to lubricate everything, right? It lubricates the 2 TL1 and TL2 bearings that are inside here. It lubricates the bearings of the accessory gearbox inside here. This oil that drains here from the rear part of the gearbox, from the plant here, and from the G3 returns through this tube here. All this oil comes back, that's the return tube. Inside here, as we'll study, the oil returns. It and the oil meet here at the return pumps of the oil system. They join together and return to the reservoir through this hose, which is on the other side. We're going to go back to the other side again. So here we have the oil pressure switch and transmitter. Here we have a check valve to prevent the oil from returning to the heat exchanger, which is up there. The oil cooler, which is up there. So it blocks the return of oil. What else do we have here? We have a chip detector here on this side, a chip detector in the module. And here we have the heat exchanger, which is on the body of the wire. We'll see it here disassembled. It's on the body of the wire. So this oil returns. This is its return line, which goes to the other side. So the oil settles at the rear part. And then there's a return line here inside, which goes to the accessory gearbox. And the oil from the bearings here settles from the top, from up here, from the accessory gearbox downwards. It passes through this piping here, which returns it to the gearbox at the bottom. Here, folks, we have an N2 transmitter, which is called N2C. This whole setup is fully identified, right? And this oil is return oil. All this oil returns. The other return is here from G3, right? The oil returns from G3 and also goes to the 3 scavenging pumps that are here. And from the accessory gearbox, it is recovered. All this oil is recovered by the oil pump, right? So we have recovery from the rear section internally, right? We have recovery from G3 through this piping and this sump. All this oil is recovered, and it comes to this oil valve block. So what do we have here? We have that check valve to prevent the engine from filling up with oil because the heat exchanger is on top, so oil would flow down by gravity. Here to the side, from here, we have the return chip detector. And also inside here, in this module, we have a coarse mesh filter here, a G3 coarse mesh filter. This oil then comes through. It returns through this hose, and goes to the other side of the aircraft, which we'll get back to in a moment. Going back a bit, right? The oil return line, which comes from the return pump, passes through this wall, and here it meets the thermostatic valve. When the oil is cold, the thermostatic valve remains open, so the oil flows up through this specific hose here, then it continues along this one and returns back to the main reservoir. If the oil is heated, this valve is closed. This oil comes out here through this hose, goes straight, then goes to the heat exchanger, which is here in the lines, cools down, comes back, takes the reverse path, returns, and passes through the thermostatic valve. And it follows that same path and returns. Just a quick tip here to know if this thermostatic valve is working or not. High oil temperature. If you have high oil temperature, you come here, this hose has to be hot because the oil reaches here. This hose here will be cold, this hose here will be lukewarm, and this one is lukewarm. If this one is hotter, much hotter than these three, with the engine hot, the thermostatic valve has a problem. Inside here, there's a sensitive element, right? Thermal expansion, which opens and closes the bypass, okay? Well, this piping is the one we saw from the other side of the engine. It comes and passes here through the firewall. And this piping passes right here, look. And where does it go? To the thermostatic valve, okay? If the oil is cold, it will return through here. There's a sensitive element here. It will return, go up through this black hose here, and go straight back to the reservoir without needing to pass through the heat exchanger. When the oil heats up, this valve closes. The oil has to go to the exchanger. It goes there. In the heat exchanger, it returns to go to the oil reservoir. Coming back here, the panel, the oil filling location, the switch that activates the thermal nano contactor, which turns on the motor protector, the oil temperature indicator in the cabin, and the cell detector chip. And over here as well, folks, there was a tool sticking out here to drain the oil reservoir. We learned that this line here is the return line from the G3, and on the other side, the engine side, is the pressure line, and this is the ventilation line, the direction of the G3. In the older engines, this used to come from the equipment. Arriel 1, as studied in Arriel 1, but in Arriel 2, the G3 ventilation system comes here underneath and enters the accessory box. It enters the accessory box, and it is collected here by the breather. That's why this engine, the Arriel 2 Delta, doesn't have this tube here for me, because this tube here on the Delta, which is the line that comes from the reservoir here, that connects to the breather, it enters right here into the engine. So the 2 Delta physically does not have this regulation for the engine exhaust tube,